If we talk of endangered species, one that quite rightly comes up is the mountain gorilla. There are just over 1,000 of them left living in the world. They live in forests, high in the trees, mostly in Uganda, some straddling into Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, they have particularly thick fur, and it enables them to survive, often below freezing temperatures. But as humans come into closer and closer contact, well, they've been pushed further up the mountains, forcing them to endure dangerous, sometimes even deadly conditions. Well, my guest today is one of those, ensuring, though, that there is a far less chance, at least in the short term, that they will die out altogether. Gladys Kalema-Zikusoka is Uganda's first wildlife veterinarian, the founder of Conservation Through Public Health, and she's with us today to talk about her work and also her book, which is called Walking with Gorillas. Thanks very much for joining us on the programme. We were hoping to join you by Skype, but unfortunately we've had to resort to the telephone due to connection problems. But first of all then, just tell us what is so special about these gorillas.
Thank you so much for inviting me on the programme. I hope you can see me. I would say that the gorillas are very special. They're gentle giants. They're often seen to be as fierce because of the Hollywood movies King Kong, but they're actually very gentle giants and very vulnerable. They're majestic and gentle. And it's just amazing when you visit the gorillas. I've been working with them for over 26 years. And I would say that every single time I learn something new. And when I'm with them, it's very therapeutic.
Yeah, we're seeing some images of what they look like right now. And they are obviously very magnificent creatures. What do you do already at the moment to try and protect them, and what more needs to be done to protect them?
I would say that at the moment we are taking care of their health. Every single gorilla that gets sick, as most likely, we try our best to make sure that they get better. And then we improve the health of the communities, because local community members can easily make gorillas sick. We started an NGO called Conservation Through Public Health when people made gorillas sick. And this is when gorillas go outside the park to eat their banana plants, and they end up touching dirty clothing and they got scabies. But they can also get cholera and typhoid when there's open defecation. So we improve community hygiene, community health. And as we're finding that as people are getting healthy, gorillas are falling sick less often. Another way that we support them is through livelihood projects, such as coffee farming. So we support coffee farmers who border the park and aren't benefiting from the tourism industry. So we give them a good price for good coffee, so they don't have to poach and enter the park. They don't have to enter the park for firewood and poach.
And the efforts have really come into fruition, haven't they? I mean, the population is actually increasing again, I gather.
Yes, the population is increasing. At the moment, the mountain gorilla numbers have almost doubled over the past 25 years, which is very good. When I first started working with them, there were only about 650. And now right now they are over 1,000, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's an amazing achievement. I mean, how difficult is it to get people involved, to get people on your side? I mean, obviously, we're talking about countries where people have their own problems to deal with, notably poverty. Perhaps the gorillas are not always people's top priority?
Yes, they're not always people's top priority, but as long as you engage them in conservation, then they become their top priority. For example, around Buindi, before gorilla tourism began, people could only maybe be outgrowers for the tea factory or dig in their gardens all day long. But when tourists came, they got jobs. The Uganda Wildlife Authority hired most people from the local community. So people who used to poach were now protecting animals, which is fantastic. And then at the same time, they can sell crafts, accommodation. We, in our NGO, Conservation Through Public Health, we also hire them. Many of the lodges hire them. So tourism is creating jobs, and some of the money is building schools, clinics and roads. And some of the money from tourism is shared with the local community, $10 from every permit. So this makes people happily more easily coexist with the gorillas, because now they see the gorillas as their future. They're really lifting many of them out of poverty.
Well, listening to what you're telling us, I'm sure you've inspired people to try and find out a bit more about it. And they can now, can't they? Because you've written a book, which is kind of like your own personal story and how you've started off doing what you're doing and how it's developed. Tell us about the book.
Yes, I've written a book called Walking with Gorillas. So it's about my conservation and leadership journey, really starting out how I became a conservationist, and then how I became a wildlife vet, Uganda's first wildlife vet, when they realized vets are needed when gorilla tourism had begun, and they're concerned that tourists could bring a fatal flu to gorillas, such as COVID-19. And I talk about discovering also that local communities can make gorillas sick, and then starting a One Health approach to conservation, where we improve the health of the people, the gorillas, and other wildlife together, and their livelihoods of the communities, and how that has really evolved over time, and how we're sustaining conservation through One Health approaches, things like gorilla conservation coffee, and engaging women in conservation and building African leadership in conservation. It's very exciting. It's really a journey. I became a conservationist by setting up a wildlife club in my high school, and I've ended up where I am now, and just talking about all that I've learned along the way. It's almost, the memoir is spanning 30 years of my life. And I hope you enjoy reading it.
I'm sure people will, because it sounds like a fascinating story and great to hear about the animals as well. So thank you very much for joining us on the programme today. That's Gladys Kalema-Zikusoka, Uganda's first wildlife veterinarian. The founder of Conservation Through Public Health is her group as well. And Walking with Gorillas is the book. So thanks very much for being with us on the programme today. Thanks.